Every morning, the same woman sat in the back corner of the café, a thin frame, a worn jacket, tangled hair. People avoided her and whispered about her, called her a drifter, a ghost. Everyone except Sam Rodriguez, a single father, who quietly set a hot coffee and sliced toast in front of her every day without saying a word. Then one morning, everything changed. The door swung open, and in walked 4 bodyguards in black suits, followed by 2 lawyers in pressed gray. They scanned the room and asked, "Who is the man who has been helping her every morning? Who is she?" What was it about that poor woman that made them come straight to Sam? Sam Rodriguez was wiping down the counter for the 3rd time that morning. The rag was already damp and gray, but he kept moving it in slow circles. It gave him something to do while the minutes dragged toward. Lil then Centrifin. The cafe smelled like burnt coffee and yesterday's grease. Beacon Street Caf wasn't a place people came to for ambience. They came because it was cheap and open early. Sam had worked the morning shift for 2 years now. The pay barely covered rent and groceries, and there was never anything left over. His son, Luke, was 7 years old and seemed to need new shoes every few months. Kids grew fast and wore through soles faster. Sam thought about that a lot, about how much everything cost and how little he had, about the overdue electric bill sitting on the kitchen table at home, about the looks his co-workers gave him whenever he picked up extra shifts, like his desperation was showing. He was desperate, and he hated that they could see it. The door chimed. A woman walked in wearing a dark jacket that looked like it came straight from a donation bin. The fabric was faded, the cuffs frayed, her hair hung loose and unwashed around her face. She didn't look at anyone. She just moved to the back corner, the same table she always chose, the one by the window facing the alley. Sam had seen her many times. She came in almost every morning, always quiet, always alone. The staff called her the drifter. Becca, one of the waitresses, once claimed the woman probably slept in the park. Tony, another co-worker, said she gave him the creeps and someone should call the cops. No one ever did. They just avoided her. Sam didn't. He walked over with a pot of coffee and a small plate of toast, buttered and cut into smaller pieces, and set them down in front of her without a word. She looked up briefly with tired eyes. She didn't smile, but she nodded. Then she reached into her jacket and pulled out a small handful of coins, counting them slowly before placing them on the table. It wasn't enough for both the coffee and the toast, but Sam didn't say anything. He just nodded back and walked away. At the counter, Becca watched him and shook her head. "You know she's never going to pay full price, right?" she said. Sam shrugged, poured himself a cup of coffee, and took a sip. It was too hot and tasted like metal. "She's not bothering anyone," he said. "She's bothering me," Becca muttered. "Makes the place look bad." Sam didn't respond. He just went back to wiping the counter. The woman drank her coffee slowly, holding the cup with both hands like she needed the warmth. The toast sat untouched for a long time before she finally picked up a piece and ate it, chewing carefully, like it hurt. Sam wondered if she had bad teeth or if she was just that hungry. This became their routine for weeks. She came in almost every day. Sam brought her coffee and toast. She paid whatever she could. Sometimes it was enough. Most times it wasn't. The staff kept complaining, but Sam ignored them. He had bigger concerns. Luke's school had sent home a note about a field trip, $20. Sam didn't have $20. He'd need to figure something out. Another shift, maybe, or a few days without groceries. Then one morning, the rain was coming down hard, the kind that soaked through jackets and left the streets smelling like oil and rust. The woman came in dripping. Her jacket was soaked, her hair pasted to her face. She sat in her usual spot and kept the jacket on. Sam brought over the coffee and toast, and when he set the plate down, he noticed her hands were shaking. She tried to pick up the knife to spread the butter, but her fingers trembled too much. The knife clattered onto the table. Sam looked at her. She was staring down at her hands like they had betrayed her. He picked up the knife and cut the toast into smaller pieces himself, then buttered each piece and set the plate back down in front of her. She looked up at him. Her eyes were wet, though he couldn't tell if it was from the rain or something else. "Thank you," she said quietly. Her voice was soft and steady. It surprised him. He had expected her to sound rough or broken, but she didn't. She sounded like someone who used to have a different life. "You're welcome," Sam said. She looked at him for a long moment before picking up a piece of toast and eating it. After that, things changed slightly. She still came in every morning, but now she looked at Sam when he brought her coffee. Sometimes she asked him small questions, how his day was, whether it had been busy. Simple things, he answered simply. He never knew what else to say, but the questions kept coming. And soon they turned into something closer to real conversation. One morning she asked if he had family. He told her he had a son. She asked how old. He said 7. She asked what his name was. He said Luke. She nodded and drank her coffee. That's a good name, she said. Sam didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. A few days later, Sam had to bring Luke to the cafe. The babysitter had canceled last minute, and Sam couldn't afford to miss a shift. Luke sat at the counter with a coloring book and a box of crayons. He was quiet and well-behaved, but Sam still felt guilty. A cafe at 6 o'clock in the morning wasn't where a kid belonged. The woman in the corner noticed. She watched Luke for a while, then stood up and walked over. Sam tensed. He didn't know what she was going to do, but she simply smiled at Luke and asked if she could see what he was coloring. Luke showed her a dinosaur. She told him it was very good. Then she asked if he knew how to fold paper into shapes. Luke shook his head. She picked up a napkin and folded it carefully. Her hands moved slowly but precisely. When she finished, she handed Luke a small paper crane. He stared at it like it was magic. "Wow," Luke said. "Can you teach me?" She nodded. She sat beside him and showed him how to fold. Sam watched from behind the counter, feeling something strange in his chest, warm and uncomfortable at the same time. While they folded, Luke looked up at her and asked, "Why do you look so sad?" The woman froze. She looked at Luke for a long moment, then smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm not sad right now," she said softly. Luke seemed satisfied and went back to folding. After that day, she came to the cafe more often. She still sat in the back corner, but now she waved at Luke if he was there. She talked to Sam for a little longer. She asked him about his likes, what he wanted. He told her he used to want to be a chef. She asked why he stopped. He said life got in the way. She nodded like she understood. One morning, she asked him if he ever thought about starting over. He laughed and said he didn't have the money or the time to start over. She looked at him seriously. "If you did," she asked, "would you?" He thought about it, then nodded. "Yeah," he said, "I think I would." She smiled. It was the first real smile he had ever seen from her. "Good," she said. Sam didn't know what she meant by that, but something in the way she said it stayed with him. The next week, she didn't come in. Sam noticed immediately. He made the coffee anyway. He cut the toast. He set it on her table and left it there, even though the seat was empty. Becca saw him and rolled her eyes. "She's not coming back," Becca said. "People like that never stick around." Sam didn't respond. He went back to work, but the seat stayed empty. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. By the 4th day, Sam felt something he hadn't expected. He felt worried, but he didn't know her name. He didn't know where she lived. He didn't know anything about her, except that she came to the cafe every morning, drank coffee, and ate toast he cut for her. But now, she was gone, and he felt like he had lost something. Tony made a joke about it. He said maybe the crazy lady had finally moved on to another cafe. Sam told him to shut up. Tony looked surprised but didn't say anything else. On the 5th day, Sam still made the coffee, still cut the toast, still set it on her table. The cup went cold, the toast went stale, but he left it there anyway. Becca walked past and shook her head. "You're wasting food," she said. "It's my food," Sam said. "I paid for it." That was a lie. He hadn't paid for it, he had just taken it. But Becca didn't push it. That night, after his shift ended, Sam walked through the neighborhood. He didn't know what he was looking for. Maybe he thought he'd see her somewhere sitting on a bench, standing outside a store, but he didn't. The streets were empty except for a few people. Hurrying home in the cold, he went home to Luke. They ate dinner together, mac and cheese from a box. Luke told him about school, about a test he took, about a game he played at recess. Sam listened, but his mind was somewhere else. He kept thinking about the empty seat in the back corner of the cafe, about the woman who used to sit there, about the way she smiled at Luke when she taught him to fold paper. He wondered if she was okay. He wondered if she was still alive. He didn't know why it mattered so much, but it did. On the 6th day, she came back. Sam was refilling the sugar dispensers when the door chimed. He looked up out of habit and saw her standing in the doorway. She looked thinner than before. Her jacket hung looser on her frame, and there were dark circles under her eyes. But she was there. She walked to her usual table and sat down. Sam felt something loosen in his chest. He hadn't realized how tightly he had been holding it. He made her coffee, cut her toast, and brought it over without saying anything. She looked up at him, her lips moving like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. She just nodded. Sam nodded back and walked away. Becca leaned over and whispered, "Told you she'd come back." Sam ignored her. The woman drank her coffee slowly. She didn't touch the toast right away. She just sat with her hands wrapped around the cup, staring out the window toward the alley. Sam watched her from behind the counter. Something about her seemed different, more fragile, like she was holding herself together with effort. Later that morning, after the breakfast rush died down, Sam wiped the tables near her. She was writing in a small notebook. The pages were yellowed, the cover falling apart. Her handwriting was neat but cramped, like she was trying to fit too many words into too little space. She didn't look up when he approached. "You okay?" Sam asked. She stopped writing. She closed the notebook and placed her hands flat on top of it. "I'm fine," she said. Her voice was quiet. Sam didn't believe her, but he didn't push. He just nodded and kept wiping the table. "Thank you," she added, "for still making the coffee even when I wasn't here." Sam stopped wiping. He looked at her. "How did you know I did that?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Becca told me. She said you were wasting food." Sam felt his face heat up. He went back to wiping the table. "It wasn't a waste," he said. She looked at him for a long moment, then opened the notebook again and went back to writing. Over the next few days, Sam noticed more strange things. She would sit in the corner and cry, sometimes silent tears running down her face while she stared at nothing. Other times, she flinched when someone walked too close. Once, a man in a suit sat at the table beside hers, and she stood up so quickly she knocked over her coffee. But Sam rushed over with a rag. She apologized over and over, her voice shaking. The man in the suit didn't even look at her. He just kept scrolling on his phone. Sam helped her sit back down and brought her a new cup of coffee. She held it with both hands and wouldn't meet his eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "It's okay," Sam said. "Accidents happen." She shook her head. "I'm sorry." Sam didn't know what she was apologizing for, but he could see she meant it. Another morning, she was writing in her notebook again. Sam was clearing a nearby table when she suddenly tore out a page, crumpled it up, and shoved it into her pocket. Her hands were shaking. She looked around the cafe like she was checking to see if anyone had noticed. Sam pretended he hadn't seen anything. He just kept clearing dishes and moved on to the next table. But he thought about it. He thought about the notebook, the tears, the flinching, the way she seemed to be carrying something heavy that no one else could see. He wondered if she was in trouble, if she was hiding from someone, or maybe she was just sick, maybe she had something wrong with her mind. He did not know, and he did not know how to ask. One afternoon, near the end of his shift, Sam saw her sitting in the corner with her head down on the table. Her arms were folded under her head, and her shoulders were shaking. He walked over. "Hey," he said softly. "You all right?" She didn't lift her head. She just shook it slowly. Sam looked around. The cafe was mostly empty. Becca was in the back. Tony had already left. He crouched down next to her table. "What's wrong?" he asked. She lifted her head slightly. Her face was blotchy and her eyes were red. "I'm just tired," she said. Her voice cracked. "When's the last time you ate something?" Sam asked. She didn't answer. Sam stood up and went to the kitchen. He came back with a sandwich, turkey and cheese on white bread. Nothing fancy. He set it down in front of her. "Eat," he said. She looked at the sandwich like she didn't know what to do with it. Then she picked it up and took a small bite. She chewed slowly. Sam watched her for a moment, then went back to the counter. When his shift ended, she was still there. The sandwich was half-eaten. She was staring out the window again. Sam grabbed his jacket and walked over. "You should go home," he said. She looked at him. "I don't have a home." Sam felt his stomach drop. He had suspected as much, but hearing her say it out loud made it real. "Where do you sleep?" he asked. She shrugged. "Different places." Sam thought about Luke, about the apartment they lived in. It was small. The heat didn't always work, and the walls were thin, but it was warm, and it was safe. He thought about what it would be like to not have that, to not have anywhere to go. "You can't stay here," he said. "They'll lock up soon." She nodded. She stood up and pulled her jacket tighter around herself. Then she walked toward the door. Sam watched her go. He felt useless. That night he couldn't stop thinking about her, about where she was sleeping, if she was cold, if she was safe. Luke asked him what was wrong, and Sam said nothing. But Luke kept looking at him with those big worried eyes. So Sam told him he was just tired. Luke seemed to accept that. The next morning, she was back. Sam made her coffee, cut her toast. She ate it slowly and drank the coffee like it was the only warm thing she'd get all day. Maybe it was. Later, When the cafe was quiet, she spoke to him. She asked if he was happy. The question caught him off guard. "What do you mean?" he asked. She gestured around the cafe. "Here, doing this. Are you happy?" Sam thought about it. He thought about the early mornings, the low pay, the way his back hurt at the end of every shift. He thought about Luke, the bills, the field trip money he still hadn't figured out. He thought about the dream he used to have, the one about opening his own restaurant, about cooking food people would remember. That dream felt like it belonged to someone else. "Now, I don't know," he said honestly. "I'm getting by." She looked at him with those tired eyes. "That's not the same thing." Sam didn't know what to say to that. She looked down at her coffee. "Do you ever think about long talk?" Sam frowned. "About what?" "Kindness," she said. "Do you ever think about it? About whether it's worth anything?" Sam shrugged. "I don't think about it much. I just do what feels right." She smiled faintly. "That's rare." "What is?" Sam asked. "Doing what feels right, without thinking about it." She said, "Most people calculate, they weigh the cost, they decide if it's worth it." She looked up at him. "You don't do that." Sam felt uncomfortable. He didn't like being looked at so closely. "I just make coffee," he said. She shook her head. "No, you see people. You saw me." Everyone else looked away. Sam didn't know what to say. He went back to wiping the counter. A few days later, she asked him about his dream of being a chef. Sam was surprised. She remembered. He had mentioned it only once. "If you could do it," she said, "if you had the money and the time and no one depending on you, would you?" Sam thought about Luke, about how much Luke needed him, about how leaving his job would mean no income, no health insurance, no way to keep the apartment. He thought about all the things he couldn't afford to risk. "It doesn't matter," he said. "I can't." She leaned forward. "But if you could, would you?" Sam met her eyes. There was something intense in her gaze. Something that made him feel like his answer mattered more than it should. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I would." She sat back and smiled. "Good. Why does that matter?" Sam asked. She didn't answer. She just went back to drinking her coffee. That conversation stuck with him. He thought about it while he cooked dinner for Luke, while he helped with homework, while he lay awake at night staring at the ceiling. He thought about what it would be like to start over, to have a chance. It felt impossible. But for the first time in years, he let himself imagine it. The woman kept coming to the cafe. She and Sam talked more small conversations, nothing deep. But Sam started to feel like he knew her, even though he still didn't know her name. He didn't know where she came from, or why she was the way she was. But he knew the way she held her coffee cup, the way she folded the napkin after she ate, the way she looked at Luke when he came in, like she was seeing something precious she had lost. One morning, she didn't come in. Sam made the coffee anyway and set it on her table. The seat stayed empty. The next day, she didn't come in either. Sam felt the worry creeping back. He told himself she was fine, that maybe she had found somewhere better to go, but he didn't believe it. On the third day, he asked Becca if she had seen the woman. Becca shook her head. "Maybe she finally got help," Becca said. "Or maybe she just moved on." Sam didn't respond. He just kept working. On the fourth day, Tony made a joke. The drifter must have frozen to death. Sam turned around and told him to shut his mouth. Tony looked shocked. So did Becca. Sam had never raised his voice at work before, but he didn't care. He went to the back and stood in the walk-in freezer for a few minutes, letting the cold air sting his face. When he came back out, Becca was waiting. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm fine," Sam said. "You're not fine," Becca said. "You're upset about that woman." Sam didn't say anything. Becca sighed. "Look, I get it. You feel bad for her, but you can't save everyone. Sam, you can barely save yourself." Sam knew she was right, but it didn't make him feel any better. On the fifth day, Sam still made the coffee, still cut the toast. He set it on her table and left it there. The coffee went cold. The toast got hard, but he didn't throw it away. At the end of his shift, he walked through the neighborhood again. He checked the park, the bus stops, the alleys. He didn't see her anywhere. A heaviness settled in his chest, one he couldn't shake. That night, Luke asked him why he was sad. Sam said he wasn't sad. Luke didn't believe him. "Is it because of the lady?" Luke asked. Sam looked at him. "What lady?" "The one who taught me to fold paper," Luke said. "She's nice." "Is she okay?" Sam didn't know what to say. He pulled Luke into a hug. "I don't know, buddy," he said quietly. "I hope so." On the sixth day, Sam woke up with a knot in his stomach. He got Luke ready for school, dropped him off, and went to work. The cafe was the same as always, the same smell, the same sounds, the same people ordering the same things, but the seat in the back corner was empty. Sam made the coffee, cut the toast, set it down. The routine had become something like a prayer, a way of hoping that she was still out there, that she was still alive. Becca didn't say anything this time. She just watched him with sad eyes. The day dragged on. Sam moved through his shift like he was underwater. Everything felt slow and muffled. He kept glancing at the door, waiting for it to open, waiting for her to walk in. She did not. At the end of the day, Sam took off his apron and hung it up. He grabbed his jacket and walked toward the door. He looked back at the empty seat one more time. The cold coffee, the untouched toast. He didn't know why it hurt so much. She was just a woman, a stranger, someone he barely knew, but she had become part of his routine, part of his day, and now she was gone. Sam walked home in the dark. The streets were empty and the air was cold. He thought about her sitting in the park somewhere, or huddled in a doorway, or lying in a hospital, or worse, he thought about all the things he should have done, should have asked her name, should have given her his number, should have found her help, should have done more. But he had not, and now it was too late. When he got home, Luke was already asleep. Sam sat on the couch and stared at the wall. He felt hollow, like something had been taken from him that he didn't know he needed. He didn't sleep much that night. He kept thinking about her, about the way she had smiled when Luke folded the paper crane, about the way she had asked him if he would start over if he could, about the way she had said that kindness was the most valuable thing a person could have. He wondered if she had been trying to tell him something, if there had been a message he was supposed to understand, but if there was, he had missed it. The next morning, Sam went to work. He made the coffee, cut the toast, set it on the table. The seat was still empty, and he knew deep down it was going to stay that way. The door swung open just after 9 in the morning. Sam was refilling the napkin dispensers when he heard it. He looked up and froze. 4 men in black suits walked in first. They were tall and broad-shouldered and moved like they had done this 1,000 times before. Behind them came 2 people in gray, a man and a woman. They carried briefcases and wore the kind of clothes that cost more than Sam made in a month. The cafe went quiet. Everyone stopped talking. Even the espresso machine seemed to hum softer. The woman in gray looked around the room. Her eyes were sharp and calculating. She walked up to the counter where Becca stood. Becca stared at her like she had just seen a ghost. "Excuse me," the woman said. Her voice was calm and professional. "I'm looking for someone. A man named Samuel Rodriguez. Does he work here?" Becca nodded slowly. She pointed at Sam without saying a word. The woman turned and looked at him. So did the man beside her. So did all 4 men in black. Sam felt his heart start to pound. He didn't know what was happening, but he knew it wasn't good. People like this didn't walk into places like Beacon Street Cafe unless something was very wrong. The woman walked over to him. She stopped a few feet away and studied his face. "Are you Samuel Rodriguez?" she asked. Sam nodded. His mouth was too dry to speak. "My name is Margaret Calloway," the woman said. "I'm an attorney representing the estate of Amelia Rose Art." She gestured to the man beside her. "This is my colleague, Richard Brennan. We need to speak with you. Is there somewhere private we can talk?" Sam felt the floor tilt under him. Amelia, that was her name. He had never known it before. And now this woman was standing in front of him saying words like estate and attorney, and he didn't understand any of it. "What's going on?" Sam asked. His voice came out rough. Margaret looked at him with something that might have been sympathy. "Perhaps we should sit down," she said. Sam led them to the back corner, to the table where she used to sit. The coffee cup was still there, cold and untouched. Margaret glanced at it but didn't say anything. The 4 men in black suits stayed near the door. They didn't sit. They just stood there with their hands folded in front of them, watching. Margaret opened her briefcase and pulled out a folder. Richard did the same. They both sat down across from Sam. He sat in the chair where she used to sit. It felt wrong. "Mr. Rodriguez," Margaret began, "I'm very sorry to inform you that Amelia Rosert passed away 2 nights ago." Sam felt something cold rush through him. He had known deep down, he had known, but hearing it out loud made it real, made it final. He asked quietly. "Heart failure," Margaret said. She had been ill for some time. She knew it was coming. Sam stared at the table. He thought about the way she had looked the last time he saw her, thin, tired, fragile. He thought about the shaking hands, the tears, the notebook. He thought about all the things he should have asked, should have done. "Why are you here?" Sam asked. His voice was barely a whisper. Margaret exchanged a glance with Richard, then looked back at Sam. "Because Miss Hart left very specific instructions. Margaret said. She wanted us to find you. She wanted us to deliver something to you personally. Sam looked up at her. What? Richard opened his folder and pulled out an envelope. It was thick and cream-colored and sealed with wax. He slid it across the table. Sam stared at it. Before you open that, Margaret said, there's something you need to know. Amelia Rosehart was not who you thought she was. Sam frowned. What do you mean? Margaret leaned forward slightly. Miss Hart was a very wealthy woman. She inherited a significant fortune from her family. At the time of her death, her estate was valued at approximately $900 million. Sam blinked. He looked at Margaret like she had just spoken a different language. That's not possible, he said. She was homeless. She didn't have anything. She had everything, Richard said quietly. She just chose not to show it. Margaret nodded. 2 years ago, Ms. Hart experienced a series of personal tragedies. She lost her parents in a car accident. Her fiancé left her shortly after. She fell into a deep depression and withdrew from her life entirely. She began living anonymously, moving from place to place, trying to understand who she was without her wealth and status. She wanted to see how people would treat her when she had nothing. Sam felt his throat tighten. He thought about the worn jacket, the tangled hair, the way she had flinched when people got too close. He thought about how everyone in the cafe had avoided her, had called her names, had wished she would leave. Everyone except him. She came to this cafe because it was ordinary, Margaret continued, because no one knew who she was. And for months, no one treated her like a person. No one except you. Sam looked down at the envelope. His hands were shaking. She wrote about you, Richard said. In her journal, she wrote about the way you made her coffee, the way you cut her toast into small pieces so it would be easier for her to eat, the way you never asked her for anything, never made her feel small. She said you were the only person who saw her as human. Sam felt his eyes start to burn. He blinked hard. Margaret reached into her briefcase again and pulled out a check. She slid it across the table next to the envelope. Sam looked down at it. The number was written in neat black ink. $1 million. He stared at it. His brain could not process what he was seeing. This is for you, Margaret said. Mart wanted you to have it. She left instructions that it was to be delivered to you personally, along with that letter. Sam shook his head. I can't take this. You can, Richard said, and you should. It was her wish. Sam looked at the check again. $1 million. He thought about Luke, about the overdue bills, about the apartment with the broken heat, about the dream he had given up, about all the things he could do with that money, all the problems it would solve. But he also thought about her, about the woman who had sat in this chair and drank cold coffee and cried in silence, about the way she had smiled at Luke, about the way she had asked him if he would start over, if he could. He picked up the envelope and opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper. The handwriting was neat and careful. He recognized it from the notebook she used to carry. The letter read, Dear Sam, if you are reading this, then I am gone. I'm sorry I couldn't say goodbye in person. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you the truth while I was still here. But I want you to know that you saved me. Not in the way people usually mean when they say that. You didn't fix me or rescue me or change my life. You just treated me like I mattered. And that was everything. I spent 2 years trying to figure out who I was without money, without status, without all the things people said made me valuable. And what I learned was that most people didn't see me at all. I was invisible. I was inconvenient. I was something to be avoided. But you saw me. You made me coffee. You cut my toast. You asked me how I was. You let your son talk to me like I was someone worth knowing. You did all of that without knowing who I was or what I had. You did it simply because it was the right thing to do. And that is rarer than you know. I'm leaving you this money because I want you to have the chance I had, the chance to start over, to build something that matters, to chase the dream you told me about. But more than that, I'm leaving it to you because I trust you. I trust that you'll use it the way it was meant to be used. Not to buy things or escape your life, but to make the world a little bit better, the way you made mine better. Thank you for seeing me, Sam. Thank you for treating me like I was worth something. You will never know how much that meant. With gratitude, Amelia. Sam read the letter 3 times. Then he folded it carefully and slipped it back into the envelope. His hands were still shaking. His eyes were wet, and he wiped them quickly with the back of his hand. Margaret and Richard sat quietly, waiting. Around them, the cafe had gone back to its usual noise, people talking, dishes clattering, the espresso machine hissing but at their table. Everything felt still. What am I supposed to do with this? Sam asked, his voice cracked. That's up to you, Margaret said. The money is yours. No conditions, no strings. She trusted you to decide. Sam looked at the check again. He thought about what Becca had said, that he could barely save himself. He thought about Luke, about the life he could give him now. A better apartment, a better school, college someday, security. But he also thought about Amelia, about the way she had asked him if kindness was worth anything, about the small, fragile smile she'd given him when he said he'd start over if he could. He thought about what she would want him to do. Sam folded the check and put it in his pocket. Then he looked at Margaret. I want to set up a fund, he said. A charity for people like her, people who need help, women who are struggling, kids who don't have enough, people who are invisible. Margaret studied him for a long moment, then smiled a small but genuine smile. I think she knew you would say that, Margaret said. Over the next few weeks, Sam worked with Margaret and Richard to establish the Amelia Rosehart Foundation. The fund would provide support for homeless women, children in need, and anyone who had fallen through the cracks. It would pay for meals, shelter, medical care, all the things people like Amelia needed when they had nothing. Sam didn't quit his job at the cafe. He still worked the morning shift. He still made coffee and cut toast. But every morning, he set aside a portion of his tips and added it to the foundation. It wasn't much, but it was something. One day, Luke asked him why he gave the money away, why he didn't use it to make their life easier. Sam thought about the question for a moment. Then he told Luke about Amelia, about the woman who used to sit in the corner, about how she had taught him to fold paper, about the way she had smiled. She taught me something important, Sam said. She taught me that people matter, even when no one sees them, even when they have nothing to give back, they still matter. Luke thought about that, then nodded. I think she was right, he said. On a cold Saturday morning in December, Sam and Luke drove to the cemetery. Sam carried a thermos of coffee and a small bag with a piece of toast inside. He had cut it into small pieces, the way he always did. They walked through the rows of headstones until they found hers. It was simple, just her name and the dates. Amelia Rosehart, beloved daughter, beloved friend. Sam knelt down and set the coffee and the toast on the ground in front of the stone. Luke stood beside him and placed his hand on Sam's shoulder. Is she really here? Luke asked quietly. Sam shook his head. No, I don't think so. I think she's somewhere else, somewhere better. Luke looked at the headstone. Do you miss her? Sam nodded. Yeah, I do. They stood there for a while in silence. The wind blew cold and the sky was gray. But Sam didn't feel cold. He felt something else, something warm and solid in his chest. He thought about the letter, about the words she had written. You saw me. You treated me like I was worth something. He thought about all the people in the world who felt invisible, who felt like they didn't matter, who sat in the corners of cafes waiting for someone to notice them. And he made a promise to her, to himself, to everyone who needed it. He would keep seeing them. He would keep treating them like they mattered, because they did. Sam stood up and took Luke's hand. They walked back through the cemetery together. Behind them, the coffee sat steaming in the cold air. The toast sat waiting. And somewhere, Sam hoped Amelia was smiling,